So we see a lot of the time that that religion isn't necessarily valuable because it's not necessarily always compatible with science. That a lot of times some people need that scientific explanation for why God exists. They need to know scientifically that God exists. And a lot of times, like very educated people in their respective fields, they come forward with this opinion that doesn't make sense logically or scientifically. So does that need to happen? Do we need to have that logical, scientific explanation? Because if not, do we just have blind faith? So I think that some people struggle with that. Are we just supposed to blindly believe it? Is there a logical backing behind it?
Just like the other questions, I'm gonna answer this in a multi-part. One is going to challenge the question itself, and the reason I do that is because I actually love just sharing the story. There was a great scholar in the 13th century named Fakhruddin al-Razi. And he was very famous in his time. Almost anywhere he went, there would be like 150 students that are following him around. And he was visiting a town, and there was a bunch of students flocking to him, and everyone from the town was going to see him. And this old woman asked, "Why are you all going there?" And their response was, "He has come up with 37 proofs for God's existence." And the old woman looks at the kids and goes, 37? You only need one. And one of the students narrates this back to Fakhruddin al-Razi and says, this is how this woman responded. And he goes, "Don't challenge the iman of old women." So the reason I start with that is, first and foremost, this idea of, do we need scientific quote-unquote proof? And my question to that would be, is how you live your life according to empirical proof for everything. How many of us have flown an airplane before? Or not flown an airplane, flown on an airplane before? I would say majority of us, people are just not participating. Majority of us have probably rode in an airplane before, taken a flight. How many of you can tell me how a plane achieves lift? A lot fewer hands, right? The Bernoulli principle that achieves lift, the idea that the plane is actually shaped in a way that more air hits the bottom of it than the top of it, so as the air is hitting, the friction coefficient causes the plane to actually stay afloat while it's up in the air. Most of us would not be able to answer that question, but we fly. Why? Because we made this decision that a lot of people I know, I trust in the system that they have developed. I trust in what it's done for them. I trust in their character, and they want what's best for me. And this is actually why we made the decision we made, that we're going to go and fly. Why? Because I trust in the system. I trust the results of the system. I know hundreds of people who have flown and got to their destination a lot quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and use it. That's actually how we answer a lot of the questions that we have in our life. Think of a lot of the decisions you make in your life. It's not going to be because you understand the scientific reason as to why this one is better than this one. It's actually not how we live our lives. It never has been. Why does that need to be the absolute proof as to why I should believe in God or not? So that's the first challenge I would put forward. And then the next component, of course, if you are someone who is having those doubts and wants that type of proof, we can talk about things like the Second Law of Thermodynamics says, and this depends on what language works for that individual, right? This just like the other questions on this panel are very individual, and the answer needs to be provided to you from a teacher who understands what type of language is going to appeal to you. So I would highly recommend actually having a personal conversation with someone you trust. But if it's a scientific element, then it could be, well, if you believe in the law of thermodynamics, meaning that every single reaction leads to entropy or leads into further chaos or further breaking down of matter. If the universe is not full on energy right now, that means that actually the universe has actually been created at a point. Was at a point of less energy, and it's getting to a point of more energy, meaning there was an absolute start time. And if there was an absolute start, what would have caused this to begin? And you have to arrive at either the universe came to be by itself, or that something outside of universal law initiated universal law. And that's when you start opening up the realms of there has to be a creator. And then you can go and take Occam's razor, the principle of basic general science, that actually the simplest solution is supposed to be the solution that is found. And the simplest solution does come down to there being a singular creator, and that's how laws don't break all the time. That's how laws actually are created by one system, is when there was one creator. So again, it can go down that line, but I would first challenge the question itself as to where it's coming from, and then try to figure out what language appeals to me. When do I get confidence in an answer? And if it is a scientific route, then seek out that answer. But most of the time, sometimes these are things that people have this question, but realize that even if they got the answer, it wouldn't have helped them, because that's not how I respond. That's not how I make decisions in my life anyway. This isn't the language that I speak for any other decision of my life. Why would this one be any different?